What's
Look
happening?
at this setup. Holy.
Shit, this is a pro guest right now. What the fuck?
Oh my goodness.
What are you shooting on a DSLR right now?
Well, the video guy can't show up to a client meeting without quality video. You know what I'm saying?
This guy's got a backlight on. Opposite color of the key. What's going on? This is like color contrast.
You know how many
good.
times a client has literally first words out of their mouth was that, "Oh my God, your setup is crazy." And if my primary service is video, I feel like that's better than a business card at a conference meeting. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely. That's a quick win.
So you're someone who's going, let's do a Zoom call instead of a phone call
Oh yeah.
with a client. Really?
Dude, I'm big on face-to-face communication. I think face-to-face communication is hands down one of the strongest mediums that you can use to elevate your personal brand or business, period. Now, maybe I'm biased because naturally me on face-to-face, I'm super like, right, in your face, high energy. There's like an immediate relationship being built. So all my life, it's always been like, oh, I love your vibe, your energy, and da-da-da. So I'm just leveraging that for myself. And I feel like that's become my calling, even in my content, because all the DMs are like, how do I become more confident? How can I come and show up as myself? And it's like, you have to first be fully okay with the fact that you are who you are, and how you come across is how you come across, and then tweak the things you don't want, and add the things that you do want. So yeah. And right now, like, I'm watching y'all. I haven't like directly communicated with you face to face until now, and I'm already getting a vibe and like the aesthetic and like the mood that you're coming across, and what a relationship would be like if I did business with you.
Right.
So I think it's what is Gary Vee doing right now? Overrated, underrated content. He's like, what? I think face-to-face communication is underrated.
And I also think you sent me that voice message on DM. Like, I didn't even know you would reply, so I was just shocked you replied. And then it was voice message. I'm like, oh, this guy's like personalizing an interaction, and like I responded even better to that. I didn't send one back. I should have, but still, like, getting that voice message like did make me feel different. I won't lie. I was like, wow, this guy sounds like he cares. You know?
Yeah.
Actually putting that time.
Thanks, bro. Thanks for reaching out, by the way. I was super like stoked about it. So
like, let's just jump into the show. Like,
let's do it.
We've known you for like, I think, what's it been, like a year now, Mose? Like, we've watched The Future together.
Probably
he actually Mose showed me. That's how we found you, because the first video I watched, which I think changed the way because I'm a videographer. I run like a video business. A little different now with COVID, but it's just a little slower.
There's some challenges for sure.
Little roadblocks here and there. But anyways, the video that probably changed my whole business and the way I deal with clients is that negotiation role play you did with Chris. Do you remember that one? It was like the tile flooring, and I was like, fuck, this, like, Chris is just dropping like bombs.
Yeah.
And the way they role played it was perfect. Like, can you just like run us through like that meeting and what that role play was like?
Yeah, you're talking about the one where there was a bunch of people around us at the same time.
Yeah,
right? Yeah. When the pro group was deep in there, I think that was early 2020, early 2020, because it was right pre-COVID. Yeah, so I'm infatuated with sales because though I'm extroverted and super social, sales makes me feel hella fucking icky, because to me it feels like I'm not befriending the person. I'm just trying to meet an end. So I'm constantly looking for role plays with Chris, because he knows I'm going to give and take with him, not like other guests that just kind of like take what he says and just whimper. And I think that's why that video did so well. But I think the game changer for me in that role play, for those that aren't familiar with it, was when he completely submitted to saying, okay, well, I'll do the whole project for free, but if the back end you get this much ROI on it, then I need 50%. And I think his ability to be completely present and really listen to what's going on and do what's known as reflective listening, like, I'm hearing you correctly, this is what I'm understanding, and then doing what feels the most fair in the discussion without losing themselves in the process. Because I think a lot of creatives want the work so bad that they get so excited when there's any client meeting, because we don't have enough sales prowess in our community, that we just cave immediately. Like, oh, okay. I mean, if you're going to pay $1,000, cool. Let's do it, because we have that scarcity mindset. So I think when he did that, I was like, oh, there's always a different way to get around whatever the what's the word? Whatever the response is that the client may have, whatever the pushback the client may have. So that was really eye-opening. And I think that's why that video did well, is when Drigo came in and was like, okay, Chris, you have to win the job. And then we did it again. And Chris was like, all right, I can tell that this is out of your budget range. Let me just change the entire playing field here. I'll do it for free. And that's when I really got stumped. I was like, well, now I'm definitely going to take on the job, you know? So yeah, I think that was the biggest takeaway for me in that role play, for sure.
Yeah, I look at that role play. I'm like, I don't know as a business owner what I'd take. Like, I understand the upfront cost. I think it was like $4,000, or I'd do it for free, but I get 50% of every head that walks through and signs up. Let's switch it on you. Like, what would you take? Would you say I'm going to take a loan from the bank and pay that $4K, or would you go with the equity or the revenue split deal?
I think it's relative, right? Like, first you have to understand the client and their kind of business. Like, it was very clear that this person, the effort of the video would bring people through the door, which was an easy thing to calculate, right? Well, if we increase the people that walk into the door by 3x, then I make my 4,000 back. But I think sometimes there's tricky situations with client negotiations where you can't really perfectly mathematically calculate what the ROI is going to be, and then you shoot yourself in the foot. Because surprisingly, after that sales negotiation, I did exactly that with a client, which was a nonprofit. And I said, well, if you get more signups, I think it was like a Kickstarter campaign they were doing for their nonprofit. And it didn't pan out. And that's just the risk you take. But I think for the sake of that role play, he wanted to show the people that were watching that you have to be able to listen to what's going on. You have to understand like what that relationship could look like. And is there a way, if it feels like a right fit for you to do business, where there's still upside for you and you not shooting yourself in the foot? So I think if I was in that same position, probably very similar after learning what he did, because you're taking all the risk up front. So the upside should be high. It should be 50 to 60%. It's like, are you guys familiar with the movie Ocean's 11?
Mm-hmm.
So Ocean's 11 came out in 2001, right? And it has a huge cast, right? It has Brad Pitt, George Clooney, Julia Roberts, Don Cheadle, all of these people. Julia Roberts was commanding $20 million a picture in 2001. George Clooney sent her a $20 bill and said, I heard you're making 20 a picture. How about, I can't give you 20 million up front, but let's do this for the culture and you get back end box office percentage. That movie went to do $500 million in the box office. I think she was, I remember how much she said she'd get off the back end, but I think it was like 10 to 20%, right? So she made a bunch of that. So if you can play, and sometimes you hear these stories like John Travolta did Battlestar or something, and he did that same deal when he was still commanding like $20 million a picture, and that movie flunked. So I think it's like always relative to, do you think that this will pan out in your favor? And if not, it's a risk that you take and you keep it pushing as an entrepreneur and just find another avenue.
Yeah, there's that Jim Rohn quote, I think it is. It's like, if you don't take risk, like risk is like you're going to make a lot of money or you might not make it all. Like it's, you got to like weigh that into your equation.
Yeah.
That's something scary to jump into as like, you know, an early business person taking that risk, but you know, it might pay off. But I want to like take a step back. Like, let's like get into you. Like, how did you get into video and business and everything?
Yeah. So for those that don't know me, my name is Ismail, and I'm a video strategist. As of after COVID, I'm focusing primarily on post-production and strategizing with course creators and digital entrepreneurs on how to scale their video content marketing output to attract an audience and then convert them for whatever they're doing. But my background is actually in academia. So like I have a degree in psychology and a master's in communication studies. And all my life, I was going to be like a professor because my mom's a professor. But there's always been this artistic itch, whether it's music or photography or videography. And during my master's degree, I just realized that I don't want to do this. This gives me no joy. And I saw what people that were getting their PhD had to go through. And I was like, you have to really want that to go through it without like committing suicide. That's how serious a PhD is. So I said to myself, I was listening to Gary Vee super heavy at the time. super, and you know what Gary Vee does? He just like injects you with motivation heroin, it feels like. And I was like, I will try to pursue my creative passions for 10 years. And if it doesn't pan out, school's always going to be there. Because I was a good student. Like I was a good academic. So I started freelancing, doing wedding videography, model photography, found a buddy of mine who we started just gelling, and we would vlog together and create content together. And we were like, why don't we do this as a business? And then people found us online and started asking us for work. And that's kind of how I got into it from a business standpoint, just kind of pursuing it.
Like you started a partnership, or was it just like you and your buddy freelance together under
No, we started a partnership together. Yeah.
What's Chris always say about partnerships?
Well,
we'll get there. We'll get there. Anyways.
Yeah, let's get there. Well, we can get there right now. We realized a little bit into our partnership that we were better off as friends, and I didn't want that to go sour. And we just had to make that hard decision, right? And we're still great buddies and all of that kind of stuff. And then COVID hit, and then I wasn't comfortable doing post-production, and I felt that after getting to know the future and studying under Chris, like, and gelled with my academic background, like the idea of strategy plus video for me is like the creme de la creme for me. So I just fused the two, and I'm slowly creating that foundation from a post-production and then just content strategy standpoint in the video space. So probably like many of your listeners, that's how I started, like just finally like taking the plunge, studying people that were dominating the game, like the McKinnons and the Neistats, and, you know, taking the camera, doing fuck all in random places, trying to be, just testing, trying to be like Peter, trying to be like Casey, finding your own voice, and then studying different teachers and different mentors. And then finally realizing like, oh, this is where I fit in. This is where I can play. And then trying to take that to its most extreme.
Ryan, do you see yourself like, obviously you started in the operations side of like the video where you're making a lot of stuff, but now you're kind of going in the strategist direction. Are you looking to like get out of being hands-on on the floor with the creative and like be more of like a director and someone who's like building a vision out for someone? Like can you talk about like your role with Mox Media, which is your company?
Yeah. So my role right now is, like you said, operations and execution. So there are times where I'll hire out teams for if there's a production element necessary, like contractors, to come in and help offset that effort. But what I would encourage everybody, I can only speak for myself. What makes me fulfilled and energized and wanting to, burn the midnight oil is where I want to allocate the majority of my effort. So when we split it between operations and creative, where I live the best is developing the strategy, the creative direction, and then having the best people execute the vision. That's where I'm finding my place, right? When it comes to executing on the creative, I'm really good at it with my own content, right? But I want to be able to dream for the client and bring the right people to make that dream like a reality, and not be boxed in by my own limitations as an editor or as a storyteller, right? Because there are people out there that do it better. So in short, to answer your question, I would love to live in the strategy, creative kind of direction with a team, and then be like, here's the best production team to do it. Or if it's an in-house production team, like, go take this and make it fucking amazing. But there are some people that are just skilled on the front end, which is client acquisition, business development, all of that. And I think many of us, and I struggled with this for the longest, is like, I wanted to be the COO or the CEO. And like, though I can be that, I don't necessarily have to have my hands in things that I don't want to do. I rather bring people in that love to do that. If you want to bookkeep, come do that for me. If you want to strategize operations and see what you want to do there, do that for me. And I can focus my efforts on the areas where I feel the most passionate, for sure.
For sure. I just want to jump in there quickly. I think what you're talking about is this real like creative / entrepreneur, which I think in terms of me and Will's background, we don't see that a ton, especially with the program that we graduated, super production focused. Would you say that that kind of creative entrepreneurial mindset comes from Christo, or like what you've learned from him? Or is that something that you really took from your background in academia and kind of coming at it as an outsider and not kind of being weighed down by the dogma of like, I want to have my hands on the keyboard. I want to be like the creative producer of this.
Yeah, I think it's been a journey for me because I'm influenced by a lot of different creatives and a lot of different teachers. And at the same time, like you said, I'm programmed by my background, right? So I have the academia background instilled in me, which is teach, 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 theory, 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 publish, publish, publish. And then there's like this creative in me that wants to create and impact. So I had to go through these ups and downs where I realized, though I like the idea of being a COO, hands in the operations, Excel sheets, strategizing business, that did not fuel me at all. And at the same time, there's an element of the creative that also doesn't fuel me, which is like the selecting and culling the footage, right? And putting it on the, you know what I'm saying? Like all
the
of that.
tedious parts.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah.
That shit will drive you crazy because you're like, I have all these ideas, and you're like, I still have 2 hours of cutting selects. All right, and finding a song. But that's why, like, I hired guys to do that when I was starting to scale right before COVID, like a couple months before COVID. I was like, whoa, I'm like making money. I can like hire people on.
Right.
Then, you know, here we are. But yeah, you pay people to do that stuff. Sorry, I interrupted you. What were you saying?
I think that's perfect. And I love that you guys resonate with that, but I think it's different for everybody. So you have to first become aware of the multitude of your strengths, right? And then literally just like write them down. And then out of the things that you write down, highlight what gives you the most energy, where you bring the most value and most upside, and do that primarily. And then everything else, to the best of your abilities, try to hire it out. But I think there's this pressure from everybody that we see, the Christos, the Gary V's, the Milettes, the Tom Bilyeu's. I feel like we're all relatively around the same age, and these are the people that we watch, right? There's this pressure to like have it figured out so fast. And I fell victim to that pressure immediately, right? Like, well, I'm going to be the next business owner that creates a national or global agency across different freaking areas in the world. And then I had to come to the realization, like, it's not really me. Like, I don't want.
It doesn't happen that quick either.
But that's important what you said. I love that. Like, it's not me. I don't have to do that. Like, not everyone's gonna be like. Not everyone wants. Like, you'll realize if you make $1 million, you might realize like, I don't want to be a millionaire. Like, what comes with that? You know what I mean? Like, There's a certain lifestyle these super successful people live, but people think, oh no, that's the end goal. It's like not for every like. It's okay to be an employee. It's okay, like that's a great. You can have a great life working second fiddle, 10th fiddle, whatever it is. And I just think people get wrapped up in like the biggest creators, the biggest business owners. And they think that's the end destination, and they think that's what they'll like. But fuck, dude, maybe you're happy with $200K a year, working 50 hours a week, 40 hours a week. Like you don't need to work the 70. But I love what you said there. Like my girlfriend actually just blew up on TikTok. Got like 50K followers in like a month. She's like, business has changed. She's a personal trainer. And I'm like trying to make sure like she's getting really overwhelmed with it. And I'm like, you got to figure out like what you like. You got to figure out like what's your ideal working life situation.
Right.
And maybe it's not to be a million subscribers on YouTube posting videos all the time, because maybe that is stressing you out. That's not actually the life you want. You have to identify that, and then you'll be happy and more successful.
Yeah. And I love you use the word, is it Mose? Is it Mosey? Moses?
Yep. Mosey. Mose.
Mosey.
We're both Mose.
That's dope. Yeah, we're both Mose. What's up? You use the word dogma, right? And it sounds like you guys are from a production background, and you're constantly being fed the same narrative. I remember this when I was in school for around people that were researchers. Publish. I'm sure for you it's like create, and try like narrow down the story effectively. Make sure that you're executing the shots in a way that like fits this fucking parameter of how to create and storytell. And it's like, what if what drove me into this program is not the output that I want to create. Maybe I want to take from this program what I learned and apply it in a way that fits me. But the only way you're going to find that out is if you take what you learned, execute on it for a decent extended period of time, identify the areas that don't mesh with who you are and don't mesh with your ultimate goal, get rid of them, expand on the things that you do enjoy, and keep pushing. That's the only way that I had to learn. Unfortunately, like I'm one of those people that has to learn through experience. So it's from these like dips and going up and coming back down that I started to realize, this is where I live, this is where I play, and this is how I'm going to scale what it is that I want to do. So yeah.
Incredible. I want to jump into content creation a little bit, just because I think content creation is probably one of the hardest jobs that everyone who's not in content creation thinks is super easy.
Hardest shit ever. Hardest shit ever. Hands down. Yes.
I think social media is probably like the top of that funnel, because I think social media, it's so important to be consistent. It's something that me and Will talk about a bunch. But at the same time, I come across some of your videos and I'm like, this is so different. Like you're rapping, you have a million cuts in like the first 10 seconds of a video. And I'm like, this is what I want to stay on to. Like,
yeah,
I hate that sometimes.
Going?
Exactly. Sometimes I think what holds back traditional video creators is that they have like the slow cinematic intro, and it's like, well, that doesn't fit the context of social media. My original question, going back to it though, is like, I try to ask this with every creator we bring on the podcast. There's this kind of balance between, on one end, I want to learn new stuff. I want to learn how to be different, how to be unique, and get my content to stand out on social media. Super important. Then on the other side, you have this like, we want to be consistent. We need to post almost every day, if not more, to kind of build that relationship with our audience. For you, how do you square those two things away? Because in my mind, like, you're somebody who's found a format that's super unique to you. And when I see that, I'm like, oh, that's a Mo video. Like that connects with me.
Yeah. Yeah. Let me first, because I'm my goal is to be not as relatable as possible, but just as real as possible, especially with these questions, because I fell victim to watching people talk about their journey in the highlight reel fashion. And I think that's really problematic to listeners. My journey as a consistent content creator has hands down been the most challenging. And you can look at my Instagram and see the dips and the breaks and then the peak, right? Where I find myself. And what I would challenge everyone to do, and this is what's worked for me, is I would experiment publicly. So if you like go to my Instagram right now and from last year up, look at the experimentation happening in real time and how the content changes, right? Because as you experiment publicly, you're going to get real data from the audience that either affirms or negates the effectiveness of the content. And then you can modify and iterate better to find yourself while also appeasing the audience. Now, with the challenge of doing something amazing and then creating content consistently, I do think there's a balance. For me, those rap reels that you saw, those bitches took forever to cut. Like the second one that I made, like there was hours into that thing. The ROI on it wasn't as high because it took a lot of time to do. And though it got positive engagement and people loved it, I realized that at scale, that couldn't work. So I started to test again. And then more recently, I found these reels that I could literally shoot 3 to 5 of them in the span of 2 hours and edit them in an hour altogether. So now I can put out content at scale. So in a long way, I'm explaining, I would say, find something that drives your passion or drives your creative spark to like test and make the cinematic or the slow burn. Maybe put that out once a month, but then find something that you can have on overdrive, repeat at scale. So something that I tell my clients all the time is like, I need you to go on lives twice a month, because one live, I can pull 10 to 20 pieces of micro content that can live as the snack, you know, when you're at a party and the food is still being made, but there's a table of like hors d'oeuvres and pigs in a blanket and chips and stuff. Like people still need that shit. People want to be walking around, holding a beer, grabbing on the snacks. Those for me are the reels. Then we can do the big cinematic stock video. You're coming in, you're talking their story as like the full course meal at the end of the month or at the end of the 2 weeks. So there's this balance. And your guys are watching me in real time at my upside with these reels. And I love that you said like that's a Mo formula, because like I'm seeing that that's the snack. And now you're going to see at the end of the month when I drop a rap reel that took me 8 to 10 hours to put together.
Mm-hmm.
It's like,
which nobody gets it. They're like, oh, he figured that it's so creative. And like, they don't see the 10 to 15 hours that went into it on your end.
Yeah. So always ask your question, is the juice worth the squeeze? Because as creatives, we fall victim to like, well, if I put this much effort and drop it, everyone's going to watch it. It's like, debatable, because the easiest videos that I've cut up have gotten the most engagement. So like find that balance. Where can you dedicate a lot of effort for your passion and drop that every now and then? And then what can you do as a steady, like just machine type of content that still fulfills the needs of your audience and the need for you to feel like you're fulfilling the promise you made to yourself of being a consistent content creator?
Yeah, I noticed that the same with the stuff I make. I work with this hockey league, and we do like this full edit of like a highlight of this hockey game. It's like a prospect game, and then but the night before, all the kids, they're hanging out in like the dressing room, getting this like new gear. It's like their first time feeling like a pro or like a semi-pro hockey player. And I'm there the night before. I shoot all that, cut it into like 20 minutes. I spend 20 minutes editing a footage of them just being like, yo, they're taking selfies and shit. The easiest video, nothing. Okay. Like I just cut random clips together, crushes on social media.
Always.
That clip where it's like edited highlights of the game, just maybe a quarter of the views. And it's like, maybe people see like edited, produced videos and they're like, I just can't connect. I don't fuck with like people. I need to emotionally or connect on a human level, see someone's eyes and like light up when they get a new jersey. So I hear you when you say do your passion, but it's like, shouldn't you also adapt your passion into something that connects with the human experience more? Because that's why people aren't going to watch. So Is it really just put out stuff that you're passionate about and not change? Or is it what I was saying, where you try to adapt?
No, I think you're right. Let me clarify what I said in case it came out incorrectly. Like the passion, slow burn, big projects that take a lot of time, I think you still need to do that because there's a part of you that needs that fulfillment. But you know that the ROI on that is not going to be as high. So it's kind of like a selfish endeavor. So you do that, but that's not the consistent content. That's the content you put out once every 2 weeks or once a month. The other stuff is what you're talking about, is like, how can I execute quickly and appease the audience and still have a level of fulfillment? So that's for in relation to like creating content consistently. I think you're asking about something even deeper, like what kind of content works. And I agree with you. It's 100% the human experience. There's one video that's 5 minutes long that I dropped on IG like 2 weeks ago. And then I dropped on LinkedIn a week ago. It's about me failing on stage. I don't know if anyone here saw it, but that video hit 10,000+ on LinkedIn and about 3,000 on IG. And it's me literally just sharing a very real failure and the transformation behind it. And I think the reason why it performs so well is there's a level of vulnerability. There's a level of like fly on the wall behind the scenes of what it takes, and people feel connected to something like that versus this constant churn and burn of just information and content that may not necessarily connect. So I think there's a balancing act, because every content has an objective that it needs to hit, whether it's like, I'm going to teach you, I'm going to connect with you, or I'm just going to show off how amazing my production is, you know? So I would agree with you there for sure. Yeah.
Like, let's go into, you mentioned you post on LinkedIn, and right now, you know, Gary Vee talks about it, and Mose and I are trying to get our content more on LinkedIn and on TikTok, these two platforms that have a lot of organic reach. Like, can we just like talk X's and O's? Like, what's like a good strategy for LinkedIn? Like, I've been posting a lot there for our podcast, but I'm not seeing the same engagement. And I mean, I haven't seen you on TikTok. I know you have a page, but like, do you want to just like talk about just these different platforms, organic reach, and maybe some strategies?
Yeah, well, so for me, real time, the video that I posted on IG, same video, same caption, did 3,000 on LinkedIn. I think it's about to hit 12,000. So it's a 4x increase in engagement and viewership. So the organic reach on LinkedIn is definitely a prime area. If you are an entrepreneur or you're developing a personal brand or you have your own business and you have an intention to lead generate or start conversations that could over time transition and convert into sales, you need to be allocating your effort on LinkedIn, because one, you have major corporations on there and CMOs, COOs, COOs of these corporations that do get wind of the content that comes across on people's pages. But two, the way LinkedIn shows your activity is nuts. It's like the notification section on your Instagram is public record on LinkedIn. So when Christo likes my video or comments on my video, it shows up on my profile in the activity section. Christo commented on your video. So every time someone visits my page, all they see is this video being reshared or commented on. So, and then on top of that, when I comment back on someone like Christo or someone, or let's say you, Will, or Moses or Mosey, it'll say like Mo commented on Will's comment. So now it's like, it's 10xing the type of activity that people get to see. In addition to just seeing your post, they're seeing who you're commenting with, who's sharing your stuff, and who's engaging with it. They may take that away in the future, but I think that's an amazing thing to see in the all activity section, where it's like, oh snap, this person's connected to this person, they're tapped in. And then you get the DMs, and it's a very easy way to eliminate the idea of cold DMing somebody, because there's already a conversation initiated because of a piece of content that you put out. And I would, to touch base on what you said in the beginning, it's like what resonates. I think quality content is quality content. The same story that was very human, very vulnerable, that showed a side of who I am and my journey resonated with people on LinkedIn. There's this assumption that you have to be professional on LinkedIn. It's like we're seeing LinkedIn in its infancy. LinkedIn is going to be the epitome of the water cooler for business people in the future. So they want to see when you fuck up. They want to see when you have a success. They want to see like the relationships you're building, in addition to the tutorials, the how-tos, the updates in the company, all of that kind of stuff. So if me and you were sitting down on like a content strategy, I'd be like, I need to see all like documentation of the struggle from a very real, vulnerable place. So when people see it, they're like, yo, Will's a video person. I may need a video person in the future, or Will's a video person. I'm a video person. I relate on a human level to what's going on in his world and his business. And I want to leverage that into a relationship. And then you can do the work afterwards in taking that initial dialogue that you had with that person and potentially converting it in the future into a sale. And I think the same applies for TikTok. I can't speak too specific on TikTok because I haven't played enough, but the reach is crazy. Like
It is banana lands. Like we know a couple people who are blowing up like out of nowhere. But let's go back. I want to, before we go to TikTok, because we do this like weekly thing, I feel like, where every guest we have on isn't on TikTok, we're like, yo, what the fuck? You'd be great. Like every single time. Mose, I think there's like 4 people we've told. Anyways.
Absolutely.
LinkedIn. So you're saying like tell the human story, tell your story. Now, what if you're coming at it as like from a brand standpoint? We're RnR, Render and Repeat podcast, or you're starting a gym in Toronto where we're from, whatever, like a lifting gym. How do you get on LinkedIn and create content that promotes your brand? Are you supposed to go brand forward, or do you think you're supposed to go like founder forward and have the person who's running the operation lead the way? Like what's the proper way in your eyes to build a LinkedIn strategy?
Yeah. So again, if you were a client of mine, I would really start with what's the end goal? What's the objective? Why are we even creating content, right? And like 9 times out of 10, the client will be like, well, I need more leads. I need more sales. I need more conversions to my email list. Yeah. So let's just say it's sales, right? The issue is people know when they're being sold to. So if it's sales, I want to then identify what is the brand personality? Who is the main person in your company? If you're a solopreneur, it's probably you. If you're a corporation, who is like the fucking like poster child of how your brand should sound, look, and feel, right? And then I will transition to who the hell are we talking to? Like I need to know who I'm talking to. So whenever I create that type of content, when they hear it, see it, or read it, they're like, whoa, this is for me. And then I would take that and create content that resonates with their life experience to highlight the attract section of the funnel. A lot of people want to go straight to the closing content, going on video and being like, we're a gym, we just opened, we have brand new equipment, we're super excited to let you in and do all the things that you need to do to build that new body. Sign up for a 20% off your 2021 membership. The problem is, all the other gyms are fucking doing that. No one cares about your new equipment. No one cares about your sterile environment. No one cares that you give pizza on Fridays. What I do care about is how I have failed to lose weight for the past 3 years. So as a gym owner, my first piece of content would be something like, it's 2021, and you probably woke up and said, this is the year that I'm going to drop those horrible 20 pounds that I've been wanting to drop. I can't stress enough how many people have walked through our gym the first month of the year and then never showed up again on February. What we try to do as trainers, X, Y, and Z. So that's how you take a human element within the business and make an audience hear it and say, whoa, they know what I'm really going through. So when I enter that gym, the conversation is going to be different. Because if we think about businesses, everything is the same until you get to that human interaction. Like, how does that person make you feel? Everyone has equipment. Everyone has rubber mats. You know, some equipment may be better than others. Like us, everyone has the gear. I can hire somebody with the best gear, but that creative is where to go. So that's, I would start right there with that for a client. I'd say, where are the trigger points for your audience? So yeah.
That's we're taking notes. That's the podcast. We'll see you later. All right.
That's
thank you for your free
fantastic.
consultation. See ya.
That'll be $500.
Yeah, well, just send us your Venmo.
Cut me the check, you know? No,
Yeah, checks in the mail. I don't know where to go from that. I'm kind of like,
I have
Mose,
a follow-up.
what do you got?
I think that what you're speaking to, two things. What I get from that, I think LinkedIn oftentimes gets a really bad rap because there are a huge percentage of the users on that platform that are very growth marketer, very almost sleazy. And what you're speaking to is really being a human, which I think that resonated a lot with me. But the other piece that I kind of want to dive deeper into, and it's something that I'm looking at your Instagram right now, and it's very clear to me. You serve a very, very specific niche of people, like video marketing. What are people doing right? What are people doing wrong? How can you get into it? How can you be more confident? Can you just speak a little bit about like the power of being specific with your content? Because I think what discourages people a lot of the time is that everyone says there's more content being made than ever, right? It's so hard to stand out because anyone can make. And when that happens, and it's important to be consistent and share regularly, on top of that, I think the table stakes is almost becoming like, you can't be this huge generalist anymore. Like, you have to have a very specific message. And I think a lot of times, like me and Will have struggled with this as well. It's like, but we don't want to like pigeonhole ourselves, or we don't want to be too narrow. And a lot of the times I actually think that gets in the way. So how do you balance like being a specific and having a very tailored message versus like this voice in the back of our heads, speaking as a creative, where I'm like, but I don't want to like just be boxed into this thing that I have to constantly serve. And I think one of the worries a lot of the times that comes up is like, what if I run out of content on this very specific subject?
Bro, that's right there for whoever cuts y'all's podcast. That segment
It's us.
should be that should be its own vulnerable story online. I had a coaching call the other day where my student said the same thing, almost verbatim, and I struggled with that. I'm like, again, a little bit over the hump now. You're seeing the transformed for almost 5 years because I'm a scholar, I'm a musician, I'm a creative, I'm a strategist, and just the idea of saying I am this for this person terrified me, because I felt like I was boxing myself in, labeling myself. What's interesting is and the reason why my output as of the past 2 months has been at scale is the second you, for lack of a better term, niche down, everything becomes more clear to the issues that you were having around creating content. I don't know what ideas to create about. Well, your niche dictates the ideas. So the ideas come in waves because you know specifically who you're talking to, what they're getting from you, and what you're talking about. I don't want to be boxed in. Word of mouth only happens when the person knows what you're about and what they get from you. So unless the audience is able to go and have a coffee with someone and say, yo, have you checked so-and-so out? They do this, then you're not niched enough, because you want the people to be able to say what you do without you educating them on what you do as clearly as if you were to say it in the same conversation. So I think we see the end result of the content creators right now, and we assume, cool, I'm going to do exactly what they're doing where they're at now, which is be a generalist. The issue is when people come to your page, they don't know what to associate you with, like you said, Mose, in the sea of people that are creating content. So the more specific you become, the less resistance you create with the audience to understand and associate you in your mind, brand, of who you are, what you do, and what you give them. So I would say, for me, again, speaking only for myself, I would use it as a means to an end. For the next 2 years, what can you be about? How can you master that? How can you show up for that? How can you show up talking about that for the people that you serve? And then at the end of the 2 years, when you've actually figured it out so well that it's kind of on automation a little bit, introduce another element of who you are. Be experimenting with those other elements of who you are behind the scenes. But the primary like marketing presence for you needs to be very clear for someone to answer what you do and what you offer them. So it's just a Band-Aid you have to rip off. And I would encourage everyone listening to be better than me and do it now and not wait.
So I think about our podcast, and I'm like, we identified our audience. We had like a call and like try to figure that out, make content for those people. But also like, we're like, we don't like, we have other interests. We have other things we love. Like we like talking about what's going on in the world. Like when are we going to go, okay, we're like a creators podcast to we're a creators podcast who like you can also listen to for entertainment and like have a great time listening. Like you're not just listening, you know, on a walk with your coffee, like focus, like you're also listening, like these are just great guys I want to listen to. So like where is that step to expand what you talk about? Like for example, this is pretty niche. There's this guy in Ice Poseidon, and when I was like much younger, I was playing RuneScape and I watched him on Twitch, and he was like a RuneScape god. Like it's great. Started making that content and then started doing IRL live streams where he would go around, listen to chat. They'd tell him to do something in a Starbucks and he would do it. And now he's this huge YouTuber. It's kind of fallen off a bit now, but he expanded into like another niche. And I find that really interesting. I think there's a lot of people who start in one space and then move to another. What I don't want to say just about our podcast, because I feel like I'm being selfish, but like, how do you think you go about transitioning from your niche into something a bit more broader while still kind of maintaining that original audience that you had?
How long did this guy do RuneScape for?
Years.
There you go. I think that's the answer. What people gravitate towards when you can do things consistently is your ability to be consistent in what you do, not necessarily what you do. So there was this great speech, I can't remember by who, but he was like, if you were to hire somebody to be the keynote speaker on your show in relation to living a better life, would you hire an unknown psychologist or would you hire Kobe Bryant? And I was like, where are they going with this? What the hell is this person talking about? People, regardless, chose Kobe Bryant. Why? Because Kobe Bryant has shown consistency in his pursuit of excellence. So whatever he talks about, he will bring that same flair. Like I can resonate with this audience because I've been consistent in what I do versus the unknown person. So like, that's a long way of me saying, ease the audience in what you are trying to pivot into. But first you have to show that you're able to be consistent in one thing for them to trust that when you pivot, you can also be consistent in that same thing. So you said the guy did RuneScape for years and then he eased them into the IRL, because I really think that best known at this point beats best when it comes to the ability to stay consistent in the thing you've chosen in the beginning.
It also sounds like you're saying have a personality where people are like, I fuck with this guy because of like, I fuck with RuneScape, but I also fuck with this guy. It's not just RuneScape. I also look at FaZe Clan. Do you know about FaZe Clan? So I used to be in that space where we'd edit Call of Duty montages. I was a total nerd in high school. Come on, like I was just recording video games and making montages, playing RuneScape. Jeez,
Right.
I'm not building a good picture of myself. But anyways, that's what I was doing, and FaZe Clan was
You
the
better
pinnacle.
own that, bro.
I will own it, dude. This is the second podcast to talk about my RuneScape and
Nerd
Call of Duty
culture's on the
stuff.
rise. You have nothing
Nerd
to worry
culture
about.
is the game right now. Yeah.
I know,
Yeah.
but anyways, I was saying FaZe Clan, they started trick shotting. They were like the head of that space. Like they were like the NFL of trick shotting. And I don't know if you know now, like they're like all personality YouTubers. They're huge on their own channels because they started going from montages where it's faceless to, oh, like watch me do like gameplay where I talk about what I'm doing. And they like built that personality. And now they're this monster brand led by like Temper, Banks, Adapt, Apex, I think is the name. And like they're all personality driven vloggers now. I think that's a really interesting organization, company. I don't know what you call it. That's transitioned spaces really successfully.
I want to add to this, which I think is really important. I think sometimes we focus too much on the transition versus staying in the pocket of what we're doing in the now. Like even the question, right? Like, how do I transition? Well, let's do our due diligence where we're at now, create a really sturdy foundation, and then transition when it feels right and organic and natural to transition versus worrying about the future state of how I'm going to transition and neglecting what's happening here. I would equate this to being in a relationship. So I've been married for going on 8 years now. Change is hard, period. Right? So imagine you've been in a relationship for like, let's say 3 years, or you've just been talking to somebody for quite some time. And then one day you just show up to the house and you're just a completely different partner, right? The way you interact, the way you love, the way you like carry conversation, your significant other is going to be like, that's kind of weird. Who the hell are you? Right? So if you're a content creator, you don't want the change to be so dramatic, so fast that the main audience that loves you and like exchanges their time and energy with you is like, what just happened? So you introduce those elements of the transition as you're going. So if you're like FaZe Clanner, for example, FaZe Clan, not Clanner, what the hell? FaZe Clan, and you're doing a lot of montages. Let's say 8 out of 10 videos are montages, and then 2 videos that month, you're showing your face. You know what I mean? You're slowly easing them in to what will be a lifelong transition. I think, what's his name? Mr. Beast did that. He went from Minecraft, didn't he? And then
he's been doing YouTube since he was a kid, so I'm sure he started with like those cheesy Minecraft songs. I don't know if you remember those.
Yeah, so he did that, and then one day he was like, "Let me show you how I can cut a table with a plastic knife." And you're like, "What?" But that's the video that like catapult. So ease them into the transition, ease them into the change, ease them to elements of who you are. Like I'm slowly introducing the rap, I'm slowly introducing the motivation, but the governing body of work is video. And I would argue that I'm very early in the process compared to other very prolific content creators. So stay in the pocket and slowly introduce those elements that are potentially giving you joy or where you want to transition. So it doesn't feel like this hard, you just showed up one day, walked in from work on your partner and be like, by the way, this is me now, take it or leave it. And they're like, the fuck? No, I don't. This is not who I got with. You know what I mean? That's weird.
That's fantastic. That's great. And I think that what you're really speaking to is that, if I could add a little bit onto that, right? Yeah. So many times we think just content, it's what I'm making. But if we look on the other side of that, at the consumer side, right, you have a relationship, whether it's with 100 people or 1,000 people. If you just switch up what you're doing one day, like that's a jolt for them. So I think that's a great piece of advice. I want to dive kind of back to when you started. Outside of what you were making, I think it's so important for people to kind of find their center of gravity and their community and their tribe. And you found the future quite early. I think just seeing from where you started to where we found you and now where you're at, like you're just a part of that community. And I think that's part of the reason that we were drawn to you. Outside of like viewing or getting into that community, like how else did you kind of navigate that in the beginning, going from the academic background to like, okay, how do I find more video people, more creative people? How do I kind of find that tribe when you were starting out?
Yeah, I had a problem that I needed solving. And I think that is the best place to start when you're seeking out everything. You have to be a good student in what you do. And good students are in constant search of answers and constant search of solutions to problems that they're having. So I was early on in my business and I was great at building relationships, horrible at sales. And I was dedicating massive amounts of times to writing proposals. And then being a student, I'm like, I need to fix this problem. So I went into research mode. And research mode led me to the future, which then led me to the community that is the byproduct of the future. So I think it really starts with that like desire to solve your problem, and then your ability to reach out to people with humility in search for answers. Like, I hit Chris Do in the DMs, bro. Like, that's straight facts. And I will probably make a video about it in the future. It's a long ass DM. I don't even know why he responded to me.
How
but
long
he
are we
was having
talking?
enough, like, bro, I'm the guy that you like look over at his phone. You're like, bro, are you breaking up with somebody? That's how long it was. Like,
Did you just cheat on your girlfriend?
yeah, like what is she mad, dude? Like, what's going on?
That is an apology letter.
That's the Berlin Wall right there. Holy
Yeah,
shit.
it was the response to like when you get the message of, hey, we need to talk, and you're like, oh, like what?
Oh, no.
It was that kind of message. But he was still early on the IG stuff. And I told him, I see that you're having an event in California. I'm an hour and a half outside of New Orleans. So this is traveling across the state, or across the country, sorry. I'm showing up. I'm in the video photography space. I'm going to take photos of your event, take clips of your event, and I will send you that. And he says, don't worry about it. You're coming a long way. I'll give you like 15 minutes of personal time since you're making such a long way over here. As our relationship grew, he realized that it's the pursuit of getting the answers that he liked about me, right? And really following through on that. So don't just stop when you find the video or find the article, right? Go hit the source up. Like, go hit these people up in the DMs or hit their network. You don't even have to go in the DMs, just go in their comments. But it's that steady pursuit of the answer from the main source that I think will elevate your game in a way that has, I would argue, changed my personal and professional life. Because now I have like a direct relationship with him. So if I were to break it down into steps, really be clear about the problem you're trying to solve. If you feel like you're not getting where you want to go, then there's a problem. Try to phrase that problem in a question. Go into research mode, find the best resources that have answered that question, study their shit, get on their radar, comment on their stuff, and then take it a step further. Go into the groups that they have, go into their DMs, directly show them love, directly ask them questions, directly tell them how you're going to help them. And afterwards, you'll find yourself in a network of people that either do the same thing as you, do it better, need your help, need your just being a peer, and it just evolves from there. That is literally step by step what I did to get where I am now. And I know that many people listening are probably introverts, because creatives, we like to be behind our craft. Start small. Like, just, if you think they won't answer the DM, that should be the main reason why you send them a DM. Everyone in my DMs is like, I didn't think you'd answer, but I made sure to send it to you anyways. And I'm like, thank you for sending it to me, because now we're having a conversation. So that would be what I would say for something like that.
Your mom would be proud. That's a very like academic, and my mom's a professor too, so I get that.
Yeah,
Exactly. I think like look at this podcast. Like I've been following you for a while, and I'm like, why not just have this guy? I'm gonna DM him. Like, fuck it. Like, let's just see how it goes. And we didn't have many guests that we didn't know in person or didn't have a connection to until like the last couple of weeks. And all it takes is that. Like yesterday we had two guys on the podcast, and like I've been following them for a while. And I just DM'd and they were like, yeah, let's go. Like, you'd be surprised at how many people are like actually gonna reply, and it
So
blows
true.
you. It's just do it. Don't be so scared. But I kind of want to go into like we've been talking, Mose and I, about like how do we like systemize our work together and make it right. And I think this is like an important idea to talk about with like for creators, speaking to our audience. It's like, with this podcast, we've decided that we want to do like recording days, and then we have like a day where we record together, and then we have another day where it's like we just do content, another day where we just edit the podcast, sectioning off so you have that hat you wear for like recording for one day, so you don't have to constantly mindset switch. Like, can you speak to like our audience and other creators? Is like, should you identify days that you stick with editing, so you're not shooting that day and then editing and then shooting, or editing different projects? Like, how do you go about systemizing your business? Because I think that's an important amount of time you should spend just thinking and writing on paper.
Yeah. First thing I would say is buy the book E-Myth Revisited. Excellent book for systematizing your business, because it tells you to list everything that you do in your business and then associate those tasks. If you were to hire somebody, what would that role be? Right? And then you kind of diversify the different things, and you start realizing that I'm doing the marketer's job, the salesperson's job, the operations job. But it's a good 30,000 foot view as to what your business would look like if it was a multi-employee business. So buy that book, read it on Blink's list or whatever you want there. Really, really good book on systematizing your business. The second thing, for me, I used to think I was a great multitasker until I tried to multitask, and then I get overwhelmed and shit hits the fan because I'm giving like 30% effort to across like 5 things. So yes, you could dedicate a whole day. I don't want to give like this blanket answer, because people work in different ways, but I would have an isolated period of time where you're doing one thing. There's a really good book called The One Thing. And the question it asks, what is the one thing that I can do that would make everything else easier or unnecessary? And depending on what's priority for you, that one thing should be where you isolate your time. A good way to do this is between an hour and a half to 2 hour sprints with a 20-minute block of break time. Don't do the 4 to 8 hour stuff, because you'll just get drained. So like if it's an editing day, give yourself 3 sprints, all an hour and a half a piece. It's 4.5 hours. It's a lot of deep work with 20-minute breaks in between, and then shift. But the way you're choosing the things you're doing is, what's the one thing that when I do this, it makes everything else easier? So it may not necessarily be shooting for some people. It may just be taking the content that I've already made and repurposing it, because now I have more content at scale for my channels and I don't have to shoot anything new. I think there's this like the curse of the creative. It's like, I always have to be creating. And then you have all these fucking files in your Dropbox and your Google Drive on your hard drive that aren't done.
That equally goes for the clients you work with too. It's like, you just spent $1,000 on me. I shot for a day. I'm only using 10% of these selects, 20%. It's like, let's like use more over time, so I don't have to come in and shoot. You're going to get way more bang for your buck, but communicating that message is tough. I find with clients, because they're like, I don't want to reuse content. My audience is going to hate seeing the same thing over and over again. Yeah.
You tell them, is the same person visiting your page every day? No, you can have different audience members find you.
That's a mic drop. We're done. I wish I thought of that.
That articulated what we were trying to say for forever. Because we noticed that too. It's like everyone's trying to create new. I think part of it's that we're influenced by these feeds, right? Like whenever you swipe, you have new content, but there's so much value from surfacing your old content and transforming it into new stuff. But I never had an answer for when somebody says, but why would people want to see the same stuff? So that's great. That helped me a lot.
Because there's this, first of all, what's branding, right? It's what they say you are, not what you say you are. When you have a client like that, ask them, who are your top 3 people that you watch online? And let's just say that this client says, I love Simon Sinek, I love Gary Vee, and I love Tom Bilyeu. Pull up Gary Vee, Simon Sinek, and Tom Bilyeu's profile. I guarantee you the first 12 pieces of content have 4 pieces of content saying the same thing. Why? Because there's new people visiting the page every day that need to hear the message in a different way, even though the punchline is the same, because that forms your brand over time because of your body of work. So when that client gives you that pushback, you say, okay, what about when Tim visits your profile in the next month and that piece of content is already 3 or 5 scrolls down? We're doing a disservice to Tim. You know what I mean? So I would tell a client straight up, I need you saying the same thing over and over again in every Zoom call you have. And I'm going to cut it and I'm going to make it look different. I'm going to make it feel different. The punchline is going to be the same. Because now you're known as the guy talking about this specific thing, and you have depth in the information you understand, and you are shooting it out to the world constantly. And really, like, how many times do you have to be told the same thing to actually do it, right? Like, it's the same principle. So, yeah.
Damn. I love that.
Damn.
I'll let that sit.
That's going to help so many conversations that we have with clients and other people trying to create, because I didn't have an answer. Like, they'd say, why would I want to see the same thing? And I'd be like, well, I guess you kind of have a point. But I knew intuitively that, like, no, we want to have that consistency. We want to develop that, like, very specific point of view. And it kind of goes back to what you were saying earlier about, you really need to carve out that, why are people going to come and watch your content every day? Because you have some very specific, valuable point of view. And I think a lot of times people do get tripped up with that, like, but I have to create something new. I have to have something new to say.
I had a conversation with a client around there. He was like, I'm worried that I'm just going to be saying the same thing over and over again. And I need to create something different. And I'm like, well, let's take that pressure off the table completely. I want you to say the same thing over and over again. And they literally, like, melted into their chair when I said that. They were like, oh my God, thank you. I didn't know this. I didn't know that I could do this. And it's because the content may be the same. The audience is ever changing. The audience can always be bigger than you think it can be. And when they find it, they're at a different point in their life. They're going down a different research wormhole. And you never know how the way you said it on Tuesday and posted it can hit different for that person than when you did it a week prior in a different shirt in a different conversation, because it may not hit the same. So yeah, I think it's definitely a mindset shift, even for me, because I struggled with that pressure to be like, what's the new, latest, greatest idea that I can talk about?
The last question that I would want to ask, so on top of, like, this consistency and kind of searching for new as one of the big problems that new people getting into video make, is there anything else that you see when brands or businesses dip their toes into video marketing for the first time where you're like, no, please stop doing this. This is not right. Like, what are some of those common pitfalls that people fall into that you see consistently?
Yeah. I can't talk about, like, big brands, but I know for small businesses, the issue is they are creating interruption marketing, meaning they're creating ads. But the problem is you need to be creating content marketing, which is top of the funnel. They assume that the person they're talking to already knows the problem that they have, and they come on and they say, wait, I know you're struggling with this. Here's our service and our product. Please buy it. It'll save your life. That's great. There's a specific point and time and audience member that needs to see that and be interrupted with your ad. What you need to do is create content at scale for the attract stage, which is the audience has no idea what their problem is, but there's a feeling that they're having that something isn't right. So I would be educating your potential audience as to the things you're seeing in your space that are usually problems for those people in a way that really identifies with their story. So be playing in that attract stage for 80% of your effort. Not, this is our business, this is what we do, but you're somebody that may be feeling this way. We've had so many people come in through our doors that felt the same way. And this is something that we would recommend you maybe try. Not come buy it from us. We just recommend you try this. Or have you ever felt a problem with your this or that? So just, I would argue that businesses need to spend a lot more time in the attraction stage, not the conversion and closing stage, which is what a lot of content is. And it's like gag worthy, unfortunately.
Great. Honestly, this has been fantastic for us. I think we've taken a lot from it, and I hope that when we clip this, our audience will take some too. Thanks so much for coming on, Mo.
Y'all, thank you so much for having me, for reaching out and being homies and taking that plunge, because I think it's encouraging for your audience. Like, you can DM somebody big or small and they'll reciprocate. So I just appreciate y'all for having me and giving me the time.
Do you want to plug anything before we sign off?
Follow your boy at Mo Isma. That's it. That's just show some love. Boom. And DM me, build a friendship.
There it is. All right, everyone. Thanks so much for watching. Please follow us. We have our YouTube channel. We're trying to plug this more. You can check out Mo's sexy lighting setup. He's the video guy. He's got the mic and the camera. It's perfect. Follow us at RnR Podcast on YouTube, Instagram, everywhere you're going to find us. And that's it. Thanks, guys.
That's it.
See you next week.
Thank you so much.